Welcome to Toe Talk Tuesday.
Happy Toe Talk Tuesday, everyone.
So fun. So fun. So we've had such a fun talk coming into this Toe Talk Tuesday already about languages.
Yeah. So Christina and I both speak French. Like she had an experience living here in France. I've been living here for 15 years. You speak music. Do you speak Italian? I know you're
I speak functional Italian, but I am fluent in Spanish.
okay. I speak curse words in many different languages. I'm not sure if that constitutes as functional. And toes is another language that we speak. So last week we talked about the five energies that show up in the toes, and we thought today we would talk about how the other languages that we knew in our practices and learnings in other spiritual modalities just made easily transferred and translated into toe reading.
Yeah, I love this topic so much. So because of the languages, so if we're going back to like languages that we speak, verbal languages, it's easier to learn another language when you've already learned the first language. Like the second language that you learn has been shown over and over again in linguistics to be the most challenging one. So when we talk about these energetic languages, there are languages, different languages or ways of interpreting energy that we speak. So let's talk about a really common one, the chakra system. Most people who are watching this have an idea about the chakra system and what the chakra system is and what, loosely or with great fluency, each of the chakras energetically is communicating. And so if you speak chakra, learning to speak toes, because each of the toes is correlated with a chakra. And so it can do a few things. One, it can help you learn to toe read more quickly and with more depth and fluency because of this language that you already speak. Going from textbook learning, so to speak, oh, well, this toe is this energy, like the second toe is communication. Awesome. And it has to do with the throat chakra. So then we broaden the whole nuance of the language. And that's where fluency really happens, is in the nuance of the language. And so that's what I love about this overlay of the different languages energetically, or we're using the word language, but it's really an interpretation or of the expression of the energy. We're putting words or context to the energy that we're reading. So there we go. Like chakras is one of the easiest first languages that most people know that you can translate into the toe reading.
Yeah, I love that. And I definitely feel like because I had the background in as a yoga teacher coming into toe reading, it was like exactly what you're saying. It was just like, oh, I get this. Like, right? Like, and it's and when you have that comfort in I get this, it it then opens you up as well energetically to be willing to receive the parts that you don't know or that you're in the process of learning versus like when I tried to learn French for 13 years in, school, and it was like you said, like just all didactic, like conjugation, and there was no application and no, I shouldn't say no, but little application, little oral practice. And then I moved to France and they were like, where did you learn French? Right. And I'm like, you're so good. They're like, no, no. I don't know. I don't know what this is. This is not French. Um,
Oh,
right.
well, and I also want to mention that toe reading can be your first spiritual language. It can be your first, like the purpose of us talking about this is to show the accessibility and the depth that can be experienced. But if toe reading is your first entry point, and I especially back in the early 2000s, it was people's first entry point into, this whole world. Back, I mean, think about it, in 2007, if you talked about doing a tarot reading or even an astrology reading, in most circles, that was a little too far out. I'm not saying toe reading didn't feel far out, but to be honest with you, sometimes in some crowds, it was more accessible than saying, hey, let me put my cards out. And so that was in my circles of the early 2000s. That toe reading was the first second language that people were learning in this spiritual realm.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing. That's beautiful. And then because they understand toe language, they have been able to deepen, if they've gone on in it, their understanding of these other energetic languages. So whether it's your fifth language or your first second language or first spiritual language, like there's so much carryover, so much interplay and overlay that just adds such a rich, beautiful, empowering and impactful series of information that will just change your life. Toe reading changes lives.
It does. And I think it's really interesting what you said, like, because we've talked about this on other episodes where because there's a tangibility to it, because it's like, oh, I can look at my toe and I can feel it. I can see the curve in this toe or the twist in this toe or the bunion on this toe, right? Like, it does sort of elicit, I think, for a lot of people, a comfort if maybe, for lack of a better word, like dipping your toe into the spiritual world, feels scary because it feels ethereal. It feels like, oh, I can't see the chakras. I can't feel the chakras. Like you said, like there is a sort of, oh, I have to memorize these chakras when you're first learning. But with the toes, like you can touch them, you can feel them, you can manipulate them. So I do, I again, as somebody who started off toe averse, I probably would not have jumped up at like, oh, I want to learn the language of toe reading if I didn't feel comfortable in other languages, other spiritual languages, and it was spoken, I was introduced to it in that way. Obviously, if I had met you and you were like, I do this thing, maybe. But if I just seen a book on a shelf, like learn toe reading, if it was like learn toe reading or learn chakra, I think I'd been like, oh, chakra. Like I don't have to look at toes. And that's the beauty of it too, that we talk about, right? Like we each have this unique path and this individual, things that light us up and how we arrive here. And so, yeah, like however you've arrived here is exactly the path you were meant to be on. And I love that this is how, because like you were saying too, like we were talking about this before we hit record, like you can go to another country and gesture and people will understand what you're saying, right? So it's like that. It's like even if you don't have the exact same language, you can express yourself when you have a little bit of overlap. And so that's the beauty, I think, as well of seeing how chakras and astrology and the center, everything just kind of overlaps in toe reading.
It really does. And one of the things that I love about these energetic languages, these languages of the soul, is that, like you said, I can go anywhere in the world and I can look at toes and I know about that person. Now, if I don't speak that language, I still know energetically how to interact with this person. And I mean, can we just talk about the power of that in connection? It's beautiful. And no matter where I go, anywhere in the world. Like one of the experiments that I want to do, I am traveling a lot this year, is I am going to actually observe my toes in different areas of the world and just observe what are my toes doing, and like energetically I can look at my toes and understand energetically like what's going on. Like 2025 has been a surprising like I've had a lot of woo so far,
Emotional
first quarter.
avalanches.
Yeah, like just so many things. And I was really noticing last night in the shower, and I have been noticing, but to be honest with you, even after all the years in this work, I sometimes still want to be in denial about things. And I was noticing a presentation of my toe that is not the direction that I want to go. It's I've got one of my toes and it's just starting to turn a little bit, and just not present in the way that yeah, just really in the way that I want to. So thank you, toes. Thank you for showing me. Thank you for confirming what I'm feeling inside and that it's actually showing up. So this is beyond thought. This is thought moving into matter because it's showing up in my toes. And I'm going to be so curious, especially with that toe. It happens to be my air toe. So air toes, I mean, it's the element of air. So they do move fast. So if you didn't know what that was, that's the elements. So we have ether, air, fire, water, and earth in our toes. And so that air toe tends to move around real quickly. It responds quickly. I'm going to be very curious to see, what does this toe look like when I'm in this country, or when I'm in this area, or when I'm over here for a month. Isn't that going to be fascinating to do?
That's gonna be so cool. And I'm just in my head, I'm like, where in the world are Christina's toes? Is gonna be like a new follow us on social media and find out where in the world are Christina's toes.
Yes, yes. And then you mentioned just a couple of the other languages, astrology. We mentioned the chakras, mentioned the elements. And so we have these different languages that we've put meaning to within the toes. And Marissa, you speak human design very fluently. How has that shown up in the toes?
Yeah, I mean, human design, I think in this way is very, I mean, astrology and the chakras are integrated into human design. So, and the planets are as part of that astrology. So, um, that's where I'm playing with human design and toe reading is
Mhm.
looking at, almost like taking those chakras to the next level, right? Because one of the things that human design talks about is the chakras have split over time, as we've evolved, as our energy has evolved. And so the reason there's 9 centers in human design versus 7 chakras is because there have been splits in the chakras. So that's where it's like, oh, like where, like, can we go to that next level within, what are the questions of, so for example, like the emotional center and the spleen center were, the solar plexus chakra. And so there's specific questions that you would pose to the spleen versus the emotional center. Whereas if you were asking that question to the chakra, you would bring those two into the chakra, right? But now you can, like you were talking about nuances, you can sort of pull it out and go into a deeper layer. In 2027, the sacral chakra is going to split in according to human design. And so there's this, right? We keep evolving. And so I think that's the exciting thing for me from that language is like being able to take it into, and then what we've talked about before and we'll dig into in other areas as well, like what are the underlying health concerns as somebody who has a background in health and genetics, like what are the underlying health concerns that might be showing up because or that the body might be trying to signal to you in your toe. Um,
Mhm.
so,
Yeah.
digestive issues, like how do those show up in your toe And we know that through, again, the language of chakras, the language of human design centers, like where is the misalignment that you can reconnect. So yeah.
I love how Toe Reading Academy continues, as you and I continue to learn and continue to evolve, like we're gonna bring this to everybody. Like our purpose is to really bring this information through the medium of the toes, but there's so much. And you've already, through your genetic background, already brought so much valuable information and energetic presentations that we can look at just because of that background together. I just love us.
Yeah.
I just
Love us. I love toe reading. I mean, one of the things that the values that we stand for, like, show up in those toes, right? Like connection, the relationship toe, trust, integrity, communication, honesty. Yeah, I think that's the beauty we talked about a couple of episodes ago. Like when you ask yourself the why question, like why and what is my why? Um, all of that is something that you can then go back to your toes and be like, oh, there you are.
there you
Like,
are. And through massage, attention, observation, and other things that we've talked about in other videos, amplify whatever you happen to be working on through that energetic connection point.
yeah. And I love that because that goes back to the language, right? Like that's how you amplify your voice. It's how you will like help yourself be seen. It's how you create deeper trust when you're able to express yourself. And so whatever language it is that you speak, you get to come into a larger community, a larger world, a more connected world, and build that trust because we're all speaking the same language.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that so much. So in future episodes of Toe Talk Tuesday, we're going to get into a few more details about the different language alignments with the toes and that interplay and overlay. And it's going to be super fun to break that down and talk about that.
And we're going to see where in the world are Christina's toes.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you. That actually makes me so happy. I've been working for many years to get to this place where I can work from anywhere in the world. And I'm so happy to be here.
Happy Toe Talk Tuesday, everyone. I hope this resonated with you. Click like and subscribe and join us at toereadingacademy.com or on the socials.
Thank you.
Bye.